Hello, I'm John Greedle. Welcome to UpOut Entrepreneurship Edition. In this video, we're going to show you how to play the game. But first, I would like to explain a little bit about the larger purpose of UpOut Entrepreneurship Edition. We designed the game to answer the question, what can communities do to help support local entrepreneurs? In the game, we rely on the idea of an entrepreneurial ecosystem. In a natural ecosystem, plants and animals depend on soil, water, and air in order to thrive. In a similar way, entrepreneurs in a community depend on capital, workforce, networks, and business climate in order to be successful. As we play UpOut, we're going to find many different ideas to support entrepreneurs. But as leaders, you need to choose what best fits your particular community. So the goal of UpOut Entrepreneurship Edition is to stimulate a rich discussion of the next steps your community can take to better support entrepreneurs and to launch you into action. So let's start learning the game. As you know, learning any game takes a little time and can lead to a certain amount of frustration. But we're confident that if you hang with it a little bit, you'll soon get the idea of how to play UpOut. So Calvin and Nick are standing by, and they are eager to show you how to play UpOut Entrepreneurship Edition. So let's begin.
So thank you, John. Before Calvin and I go through and do a demo game, Calvin's going to go through and talk about the different pieces and components of UpOut.
UpOut has three basic components: money, resource tiles, and improvement cards. Here's a look at the money. You should start the game with $60. There are also 4 different resource tiles in the game. They correspond with the 4 different components of the entrepreneurial ecosystem. When you start the game, you will get 3 random resource tiles. As the game progresses, each team will get 1 resource tile at the end of every turn. So at the end of turn 1, everyone will have 4 resource tiles. At the end of turn 2, everyone will have 5 resource tiles, and so on throughout the rest of the game. In the game, there are improvement cards along the side, and we set them up to correspond with the 4 types of assets. The first resource card we're going to look at is a Entrepreneurial of the Year award. Looking at the top of this card, we see that this Networks card takes 2 resource tiles. Looking further down, we can see that this card costs $20. So to play this card, you have to have both of these requirements. You have to have the $20 to pay for it, and you have to have the resource tiles on your board that match the card. This card gets players $5 in revenue every turn for the rest of the game, starting the turn after they play the card. What this means is that after 4 turns, this card will pay for itself. At the very bottom of the improvement cards are the letters VP, followed by a series of numbers. Looking at this card, we see that the numbers are 2, 3, 4, 5. In this basic edition of the game, we're only going to concern ourselves with the very first number. On this card, we see the first number is 2. What that means is that playing this improvement card gives a team 2 victory points. Looking at the top right-hand corner of your board, you can see the scoring system. Playing a 2 across will yield the team 2 victory points. Playing a 3 across will yield you 3 victory points. And playing a 4 across, you'll get 5 victory points. Looking at the bottom of the scoring box, we can see that players can earn bonus points depending on the number of improvements they play in different categories. If you play 3 improvements in different categories, your team will get 2 bonus points at the end of the game. If you play improvements in all 4 of the different categories, you'll get 5 bonus points. Next, let's move down on our game board and talk about the turn phase. The first step of every turn is for players to draw a card. When they draw a card, players get to choose one card from any category they like. The next phase of every turn, players are required to make a decision. They have to choose whether they want to play a card or discard cards. Keep in mind, you can only do one. You either have to play or discard. The fun thing about this game is you can play as many cards as you're able to do. You're also able to discard as many cards as you like and replace them with the same number of cards from any categories you like. The next step in the game is for teams to pick one person to go see the banker. We're going to talk a little bit more about the responsibilities of this person who sees the banker next. The last thing to do after seeing the banker is to place the resource tile you get at the end of the turn back on your board. The last part of the game board is a reminder of the job of the runner. Every team is going to have one person to act as the runner. Their role is to go to the front of the room and see the banker at the end of every turn. The first thing they're supposed to do is bring the improvements they'd like to make along with the cash required to show the banker. If you are not going to play any improvements, you still need to see the banker to collect your revenue and to get a tile. The second responsibility of the runner is to know the amount of revenue you have on the game board and tell it to the banker. And the last thing to do is to draw a random resource tile and then take it back to your team. So let's talk about how you play an improvement card. As I said earlier, there are 2 requirements. You need to have the appropriate number of resource tiles, and you need to have enough money. As you can see, I have 2 network resource tiles on the board. And I have $20. So I'm going to take my card and my $20 to the banker. The banker will inspect my card and my money to make sure that I have enough. I'll give him the money, and he'll give me my card back, and I'll take it back to my table. And I'll place the card under an open resource tile. Let's talk about how to make an improvement. This game's called Up and Out because you can place your resource tiles either up on top of each other or across each other, out. In this scenario, I'm going to make 2 plays. I'm going to play an up improvement and I'm going to play an out improvement. So I'm going to play a 2 up capital and a 2 up across. To do this, I need to have $40 and take it to the banker. After giving the banker my $40, I'm going to take my 2 up card, place it on the board, and I'm going to take my 2 across card and place it on the board. This is an up and an out improvement.
Well, we're going to demonstrate a couple of turns of Up and Out Entrepreneurship Edition. Calvin and Nick are each going to play a team or one player, and I'm going to be the banker. In this game, we are only going to have across improvements, and you notice we're also keeping the resource tiles the same for both players, and we're just doing that to make it a little easier for you to follow. In setting up, first of all, you need, of course, your resource tiles on the board. You can see they're already on the board. You need to have $60 in money. And then finally, you need to draw one card from the top of each pile. So we'll have our players go ahead and do that now. We'll get started with round one. Okay, what have you got, Calvin?
Well, I've got a networks 2 across, a business climate 2 across, a capital 4 across, and a workforce 3 across. I can't play any of these cards, so I'm going to have to discard. What about you, Nick?
So it looks like I also have a network 2 across, a business climate 2 across, and I do have a capital 2 across, which is great since I have 2 capital resource tiles. So that means in my turn, I can make a play.
Okay, very good. So we start the turn by drawing one card. You can follow along on your game board. So you draw one card from any category. They're very likely to take one from capital because they have 2 resource tiles in that category. Okay, what did you get, Calvin?
So I drew a capital 3 across, so I still don't have an improvement I could play. So I'm definitely going to discard now.
And I ended up drawing another capital 2 across, which is great for me because that also gives me another opportunity to make a play.
Okay, so you can make an improvement, one improvement in each of those spaces, both of them being 2 across. Okay, so let's move on. The next part of the turn would be to either play or discard, as you see on your game board diagram. Calvin's going to discard.
Yep, I'm going to get rid of a lot of my cards. I'm going to keep my capital 3 across. I'm going to keep my networks 2 across because I've already got some of those resources. And I'm hoping that at the end of this turn, I'll have a resource of one of those. All of these other cards is going to take way too long to play, so I'm going to discard them and try to get some new cards.
Okay, so what are your discards, Calvin?
I'm discarding a capital 4 across.
Which is a community foundation.
Exactly. I'm discarding a workforce 3 across, which is a youth entrepreneurship camp. I'm also going to discard the business climate 2 across, which is a development ready business site. I'm going to take these 3 cards and put them on the bottom of each of their decks. So I discarded 3. Now I get to draw 3 from categories of my choice. Since I get to choose, I'm going to target capital because I'd really like to get a capital 2 across. So I'm going to draw 3 of these. It looks like I've got 2 capital 2 acrosses that I can play next turn. Now that I've discarded, I can't play them. I can play them next turn, but I'm done for now. What about you, Nick?
Great. So since I have 2 capital 2 across cards, it looks like I'm going to make a play. So I'm going to take my 2 cards, and each card costs $20. I'm going to take each one of those cards with $40 and give it to the runner, which happens to be me as well, and give it to the banker.
Okay, as the banker, I get to exercise my power. I collect the money, and I'm going to check, make sure these are appropriate. He's got $40 to pay for them, so he has no revenue at this point because there's no improvements on the board, so he doesn't get any revenue. However, he does receive a resource tile. And he received a blue one. In the game, you will randomly draw them.
And so I will also put my plays underneath my underneath the capital resource tiles. And now these are set. I have created a revolving loan fund and a progressive locally owned banks. So now that these are in place, they can't be moved.
And you're done with your turn.
Yep, and I'm done with my turn.
So Nick's done with his turn. Calvin, what's your situation?
Well, I couldn't play, so I discarded. And the next step, even though I discarded, is I still have to see the banker. I don't have anything to give the banker, and he's not going to give me any money because I don't have any revenue on the board. But he's going to give me a resource tile.
I am indeed, and we're keeping this the same tiles for both players, so he also gets a blue workforce tile. Now both players are done with turn 1, and we'll move ahead and do the second turn. Remember how we start every turn? We draw one card from any category. Calvin, what are you going to draw from?
I'm going to draw a workforce, and the reason for that is I already have my capital 2 acrosses, so I know I can play those, so there's no reason to draw another capital. I've got a network 2 across that I might play later, but I don't have any blue cards. Now that I've gotten this new blue tile, I want to plan ahead and draw a workforce. And it looks like I got a workforce 2 across, so I can play that later. So that's the end of my step. What about you, Nick?
Great. I'm actually going for a capital 3 across because I want to get a larger play, and I think that my community could really use an investment in capital, and hopefully next turn I might get another capital resource tile. So I'm going to try and pull one here. And I happen to get it, which is great. So next turn, if I'm able to get the capital tile, the capital resource, I'll be able to put a TIF district into my community.
Okay, very good. Now players have the decision whether to play or discard. Calvin, what are you going to do?
I'm going to play my capital 2 across.
What are they, Calvin?
The first one is a revolving loan fund. The second one is a progressive locally owned bank. They each cost $20, so I need to take $40 along with my cards and take them to the banker.
Thank you. More money for the bank, $40, that's appropriate. I'm also going to, you have no revenue because there's no improvements on the board. And so I'm also going to give you a resource tile. In this case, a yellow business climate.
Great. Now I go back to my table and place both of my improvement cards under my resource tiles. And my turn's done. How about you, Nick?
Great. So this turn, I don't have any plays, so I'm going to have to discard. So I'm looking at my entrepreneurial ecosystem, and right now I don't have any business climate resources. I don't have any business climate tiles. So I'm going to discard my business climate and draw another workforce tile. And it looks like I got a workforce 2 across, office hours at small business development centers. So that's really nice. If I happen to get another resource tile, then I can play next time. So even though I just discarded, I still want to go to the banker and receive revenue from my 2 plays that I did last turn. So I get $5 in revenue from the revolving loan fund and $5 in revenue from the progressive locally owned banks.
Okay, as the banker, I will give you the $10 for the revenue. There's no improvements to track. And also you receive a resource tile.
Yep, so I go back to my ecosystem and I place my business climate resource.
Okay, that is the end of 2 turns in Up and Out the Entrepreneurship Edition. If we look at the boards, we see that both players have played. Of course, they have the same resources, which would not be the case in the typical game. They've each played two across capital improvements. How many victory points do you have, Calvin?
I have 4. I get 2 from each improvement.
Okay. We see that listed on the card. It's the first number. We also see it listed on the game board. Right? If we look in the upper right corner, it specifies the number of victory points for each type of improvement. Very good. Nick, any final thoughts?
Up and Out is the greatest game you'll ever play.